Hey there guys, gals and non-binary pals, my name is Fluxx Wyldly, I'm your favourite local drag whatever, and I'm here to talk to you today about fashion. As a gender-fluid non-binary person, I've found that aesthetics and playing with fashion has been vital to my understanding of myself as I have come out and begun to explore my gender identity, and I wanted to see how that impacted other trans people in my community. Here is a selection of interviews that I conducted with some local fashion experts. I spoke to Frosty the Sew Man, a Cardiff-based tailor and garment constructor.
So, how long have you been designing for? Has it been something you've always done?
So this year, when I turned 31, I will have been making clothes for more of my life than I haven't been making clothes, which is a really cool thing to be doing. So about 15 years at the moment. It's always been something that I've liked. I've always liked to dress up. I've always liked to have my own style and things. But it wasn't until I was like 15 when my mum was like, "Shall I just teach you how to put that together?" I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I always used to like get a jacket from the charity shop and then just like hack at it with a pair of scissors and then like safety pin it all back together and be like, "Look at that, that's good, isn't it?" And like stick loads of random shit all over it, like snakes and ladders or globe or like little army men or like just random stuff. She was like, "Do you want to learn how to sew?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I also spoke to Diego, a local events and documentarian photographer who draws a lot of their inspiration from their background in traditional and fine art.
My aesthetic also comes from cinema and films, which is also connected with fashion. Color, like vibrant colors and very saturated colors too in my work. And at the moment I'm not doing it anymore, but I used to do drag and makeup, so obviously that's something I also bring into my photography.
I also spoke to Mariana, historical fashion enthusiast, drag queen, and general local fashion icon.
I've been able to buy clothes or produce clothes that, especially as a fat person, I've never had access to, from a size point and also from a cost point of view, because a lot of like custom made or almost like special order stuff is really expensive, and I fully understand why. I mean, from making my own stuff, I know how difficult it can be, and it's just allowed me to explore more masculine sides of fashion, because I describe myself as quite high femme. I mean, this means nothing, but I don't wear trousers ever, but just because I don't find them very flattering. And I think that can confuse people with like my gender presentation, because I'll say like, I'm non-binary, and because people have got a very narrow worldview, they're like, non-binary wear dress? Why wear dress if non-binary? It's like, it's fully that, and like, you've got lipstick on, it's like, that doesn't mean anything. Not just in drag, in my real life, I have started curating, which is a fancy word, a wardrobe that is mostly inspired by historical dress, just because I love the fuss of it all. I think there's something delightful about wearing way too many layers and wearing stuff that is like semi-complicated to put on, and then you have to put it on in the right order. I just really like that extra level of extra. I've been curating, for me, means making stuff and then trying to source like secondhand pieces, because I'm trying to avoid fast fashion, but as also a fat person, that's really hard to do, and I never shame anyone for having to buy fast fashion. It is cheap, that's the point of it. It's available in a wider range of sizes than anything secondhand, and if you haven't got the time to trawl through Depop and eBay or vintage shops, absolutely understand that. And there are some great pieces of fast fashion that like all pop up on a sponsored ad, and I'm like, no, don't click on it. But I have the ability to not, I like to say, that old anti-piracy thing that was like, you wouldn't steal a car, I'm doing it as like, you wouldn't download a dress and take a picture and going, right, I'll just copy that when I get home.
When lockdown happened, like I have stuff in a shop. I work for my friend doing all like this different types of tailoring and stuff. All of that just stopped, and I was like, oh, what do I do now? Because I'm really awful at an online presence. The way that I get a lot of my inspiration is just by like, in my job I work for Deliveroo as well, so I'll be out and I'll be just sort of like looking around and seeing what people are wearing and be like, oh, that looks cool, oh, that's nice, and like, oh, I'd like to do something with like those sleeves, or like, oh, I'd like to do something with like that kind of cut. And that's what influenced my projects like pre-lockdown. But in lockdown, what influenced me in lockdown was just like looking in and seeing what I wanted to make, and I was like, oh, I haven't made a top in a really long time. Let's see if I can make like a cool top or something. And then this is sort of just like what started me off on this like route of like, oh, I could experiment with that a little bit. I could do something like this. I made a couple of other things that they've sold. That's what I sort of like started doing. I started making more of those kind of things, and I sort of, from taking the measurements from the women's pattern cutting books, I found that like a lot of the things that were in there, none of them really fit me properly, and that was really annoying because like I'm the one who made it. I can't believe anyone else. I had to sort of like take my metal pattern cutting books and like swap and like try and figure out what all the different measurements go with different things to like get something that fits. So now I have a couple of different things in kind of creative. I have these type of dresses, so they're called like a zone out, basically like dress, got pockets, it's very like flowy, it'll fit like a variety of different shapes and sizes. This just fits me great, and I just feel like if there's anyone else who does like to wear like a really nice dress or like a nice pair of dungarees, so I did this. I did one in like a pinafore dress with like a pocket at the front. Yeah, that's that. I just wanted people to have that option, basically.
Fashion as an industry obviously is, as with a lot of things, is built very much on this idea that, you know, there is a masculine form and a feminine form, and they have a very specific shape that they fit. It's got to be quite difficult working as a designer within those constraints to, you know, try and find a way to design genderless.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is always a struggle because you get people who are adventurous, and people who are adventurous, they don't care about like smaller details. But it's really annoying because adventurous people are few and far between. Kind of Creative is like such an amazing place because you just get all of the like people who they get it, like this is like something that's handmade. There's like 50 artists in the shop, so they get it. They've come there for something that's handmade. They've come for something that's unique and individual. But even there, like it's a struggle to like tell a story in like the space of a tag that's like this big. To make I just feel like to make something genderless is to make it adventurous and interesting, something that's so awesome it doesn't matter who you are, you will look fucking great in it.
Do you think that the importance of fast fashion moving towards gender neutrality, do you think that's something that's actually going to happen, or do you think that's maybe like a pipe dream stuff?
I'm not sure. I think it would be nice. You are seeing now on websites, you know, male presenting models wearing jewelry or accessories, that kind of thing, that, you know, 5 years ago you wouldn't have seen, or even 2 years ago you wouldn't have seen, or capitalism is tricky in the fact that if it knows that it can profit from gender neutral people, from gender queer people with different presentations. They know that they can profit from it. Why aren't they doing it? this is always my argument for not why are there not more plus size brands? Because as the government keeps telling us, as a nation we're getting bigger, but hello, capitalists, cash in on the fact that bigger people need clothes. Clothing will become more gender neutral, but not from a nice perspective. It will come from a money way. But sometimes that is the only way you get stuff.
In most websites, if you're shopping online, the categories are men, women, and sale.
I identify as sale.
Yeah, my gender is sale.
Yeah, I had a problem with a website where they were selling shoes, and I've got size 10 feet, so I generally buy men's shoes. But because they were like, we don't separate shoes by gender, but then they also didn't have a filter to show what size shoes they were up to. So I was just like going, well, I don't know if this is a typical man or woman's shoe because it's a golf boot, but is it going to go up to my size? And another thing is companies that use non-binary models and like state that they are and have like gender neutral ranges that only make stuff in like a size 8 to 16 or shoe size up to like an 8, so like women's shoes. And it's always really frustrating to be like, you are trying to reach, I understand what you're trying to do, but you failed at the first hurdle by limiting your range. And I understand they can't make everything in every size, but if you're making like a Pride rainbow shoe, maybe think that like people with larger feet are going to buy it.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I've always felt that like the phrase clothing has no gender, it has actually been quite a tricky phrase for me to grapple with in a way, because like clothing should have no gender and you should be free to wear whatever you want regardless of your gender. But because of the way our society is, you don't get to be, like you're not going, if you wear a suit and you have a certain body type, people are going to perceive you a particular way.
Yes, like I believe it in theory, but also in practice, especially like when I was younger, like buying in the men's section gave me so much euphoria. Even before realizing I was trans, like I remember like being with my mom and seeing like a Swiss shirt. It was blue, of course. Blue is my favorite color, and it was in the men's section, and I was like, oh, I really love this one, but it's in the men's section, blah blah. My mom was like, well, if you like it, and then you can just buy it, it's okay. And it was very validating. And
I remember the feeling. It felt almost like a forbidden treat, like I'm allowed, especially when you are earlier in that transition phase and still figuring out who you want to be and what you want to say. I think in a way saying clothing is genderless at that point almost takes away some of that power.
It's because people should feel that they can wear whatever they want, but society still holds some clothing or some aesthetics to femininity or masculinity, the binary, the gender binary. So it's okay if gender clothing gives you euphoria, and it's okay to like if you don't give a fuck and just wear whatever you want. I feel the same with the way I talk and also the way I move. Like there was certain point in my transition that I was like performing this masculinity, like, but actually like be conscious of the performance, and now I see myself in the past and it was like, oh my god, I was actually like going through like puberty or something with those manners, like trying to talk more like that, super serious, like not smiling, not doing certain gestures like that or moving my hands, obviously no long hair, not makeup at all, and it's like, okay, I had to go through that, and now I'm just like in a place where I'm just like comfortable doing other things. Yeah.
Yeah, and expressing you rather than expressing man. Like,
Yeah.
that's a nice thing as well, I think, that doesn't get talked about very much, because a lot of the stories that we're told about, like, you know, whenever there's a trans story on TV or in film, it really centers around discomfort and about this idea of like, oh no, I feel wrong, I'm not the way I'm supposed to be. And I don't think there's enough stress put on like the euphoria, the affirmingness, the moments where you step over to the other side of the shop for the first time, or the like moment where you breathe out and realize that you don't actually have to do the most masculine stuff all the time to still be a man.
I think, yeah. I mean, dysphoria is real, but it's not the only thing that is out there in the trans community, and you don't need dysphoria to be trans. And what you said, like euphoria, is something that I think is more powerful for me in realizing I'm trans than dysphoria. It's more like, oh my god, these things bring me so much joy, makes me so happy. So that's it. That's who I am.
Like, you're building a new person, essentially. That's what's going on. Like, you're exploring that part of yourself, and like, we can talk about it through clothing, but it's everywhere. Like, yeah, it's a strange one. Just because like it's so much of it, you don't realise until you think about it enough how much of your life it is.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, like, oh, that, like, yeah, it's bloody strange, but at the same time, it's such a journey that, like, you're always discovering something, and that's what I like about the journey that I'm on at the moment, is that, like, there's always something new to look for. There's always, like, something more to add into, like, my look, my thoughts on things, and like just educating myself about stuff. And like when I'm reading, like I was reading Billy Connolly like yesterday, and he was like, oh, there's fuck all choice for men when you go shoe shopping. You go like to a women's shoe shop, you've got like slingbacks, you've got high heels, you've got like patent leather, you've got like corduroy, hessian, leopard print, like all of these amazing, like, you know, different colours and shapes and stuff. You go to the men's department and it's just like trainers, shoes, boots, like, to you.
Do you think that like limiting what is available in designs for men is perhaps part of a bigger problem concerning like self-expression and this idea that you
like mental health, like man up, like, because yeah, 1,000,000%, like a lot of the people I like know from my past, like all of those type of people who would say those kind of things to me are all like tracksuit jeans and t-shirts cats, because they don't want to be seen, they don't really want to be like notice for that kind of thing. You feel sorry for those people, because like there's no one is that fucking boring. Like no one is. Like there's definitely something in there. You just gotta look for it, and like some people are just scared to go looking.
You have done your self-portrait series, and you've also captured a lot of people who have very different identities and self-expressions. What do you think is the most interesting thing about trying to get that to be visible in the photos that you do?
I think for me the most interesting when I do it for other people is when they feel empowered with the portraits, when they see themselves in the portrait, and they like, and they see it in a way that sometimes they don't see themselves in a mirror. Like they see the photos, it's like, oh my god, I love it, and it's like, it doesn't look like me, and it's like, no, it looks like you. It just you're not this.
It looks like you really look, not like you think you look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that happens to me too. Like sometimes I see myself in the mirror and it's like, oh, I'm not liking it that much. But then I play with the lights, I play with the colors, and then suddenly there's a photo where I recognize myself and I like it, and I think that's very special. Or yeah, it doesn't even have to be like with lots of equipment, even with just natural light. I remember doing a portrait of a friend with some just flowers in the sunset, and they were like, oh my god, I love it, like I really like it, and I see myself and it's like, oh my god, I'm going to cry. when I'm for like taking photos of drag performers, I'm always trying to like bring if the character is more masculine or feminine or androgynous. I try to play with that too, like when I direct, which it's not really something I do like a lot. I also try them to flow with what they like. When I was trying to research for poses when I'm directing people, it's like everything you find is like poses for male models and for female models, and it's like, okay, I'm going to get some ideas, but then maybe I'm trying to like break them. It's like good to know what like society expects from the binary, but it's also good like to break it or to play with it and exaggerate it in a way that is yeah, it also breaks it because it's so over the top that it's like, what's going on.
Do you find that when you're trying to capture a masculine aesthetic, there's still a fun, like playful way it can be approached?
Because most of the time when I have taken like photos of masculinity, like in performance, it has been through drag. I think it has been really fun and really like you have a lot to play with because it's drag. But I'm not sure how good I would do it, like capturing like something more like traditional.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird, but it's kind of like unknown territory for me. Just like capturing like boring masculinity. It's not something I have found, but it's plenty out there, I'm sure. It's just like I'm lucky enough that. But yeah, and I agree that, for example, when going to buy clothes, the options are very limited, and it's just like, oh, I would like that fabric that they put in the woman section. They could put it in those trousers that would fit me, but yeah.
I've yet to meet a trans person or gender non-conforming person who genuinely doesn't care about clothing. It's almost like a privilege that to be, oh yeah, I just grab whatever is on the hanger, like I get clothes because I need clothes. Like, yeah. The idea of not having opinions or not genuinely at least caring a little bit about the presentation and the way you are looking is something that it simultaneously feels like trans people can't afford to have and yet also would not want.
No, there is. I agree with you there. Like, and probably I don't think I have either. I did a shoot a long time ago. That was actually the first one of these that I made with my friend Kirby, and she's like really big into her gaming and just like, it was a struggle to be like, oh, come out in nature and like come have some fun and like let's do this shoot, it'll be great. And she was just like, oh no, like I'm like, look, we're going to the woods. There's fuck all anyone out there. It's fine. Let's just go. We're gonna have a fucking great time with loads of bubble guns and like shoot them at each other, and we're gonna do a great shoot. And like, she got into it in the end, but even she'll like have this identity of like, oh, I'm gonna be like this cool like gamer girl with like loads of camo. I'm gonna be like this character today. Or I'm going to Comic-Con, so I'm gonna do this. And like, yeah, I agree. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're like in that gender non-conforming community, you always got something to say about fashion.
I guess it's like maybe it comes from a place of like being denied and of, like I said, having that like the narrative that gets pushed on us a lot is this idea that you have to feel uncomfortable and othered, and it's very centered around dysphoria. And I think maybe taking control of clothing is like the ultimate defiance of that in a way. It's the easiest way to say like, no, I don't feel uncomfortable, I feel great.
Yeah. It doesn't matter like if you are in that thing of like, oh, I used to wear a suit and now I wear a dress. Like, I read The Trauma Cleaner. Have you read The Trauma Cleaner?
No, but it sounds cool.
So basically it's about this woman, and she goes to the houses of hoarders or people who are like a bit older and they've died and their house needs to be cleaned. So it's like the like dirtiest, nastiest job. Like, they go to people's houses and there's like newspapers that have like built up on the floor, and like it's a really, really hard job. And like they go through it in the book of like all these different houses, but also like all the different parts of her life. And like it's just really interesting because through all of it, she was like a very gender conforming woman. She always wanted to be like someone who would pass, and like, you know, she had a husband, she had like loads of visitors, she was like very right wing in political views, but at the same time she really cared about her fashion. She cared about looking good. She cared about like all of these like, you know, different elements and parts of it. And like, I think reading that book is something that like helped me understand that a lot. And like, I agree with what you're saying, because like it is that ultimate form of defiance of like, well, you thought I was like this, well, I'm not like this. This is how I am. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna wear it like on my whole body.
There really does seem to be a connection between LGBTQ people generally, but trans people in particular, and the specifics of like aesthetics and self-expression and using that visual form of expression. Even if it's like, no, I'm making a conscious choice to wear jeans and a t-shirt every day, it's still like you have to have an opinion about the way you are expressing yourself.
For me personally, I think it's very real for trans people and probably other part of the LGBTQ community that gender non conforming, but especially I think for trans people, like clothing and aesthetics is part of that transition, like and for me it's just like it kind of fluids, it flows, like it's fluid, like there was a part of my transition that I was like, I hate pink, I hate pastels, I don't want to wear makeup anymore, I'm not going to have long hair anymore, and now it's very long.
Very long, yeah.
Right now, but it's really long. So yeah, and I can see it in other trans people, like the way they express themselves, like I think is very visual and it's important, and yeah, I think it's a way to communicate to other people like who we are. I just wish I have more energy to like put on makeup and glam every day, but it's like inside I'm just like blue and green, but you cannot see it. I'm just wearing like these black trousers and black t-shirts every day to work, but I'm not like that in my mind. So,
It's like if I could shapeshift into the like huge hair and blue face, yeah. Like if you've truly had to claim an identity for yourself, then stepping out of the box that you've already been given is such an important part of that like you don't want to then go into, I mean, some people do, but you want to make a choice about like, if I want to go baggy and shapeless and completely conceal my form so no one knows what's going on here, like
Exactly.
that's an option, but you want to have the choice of that rather than that being the like
The only thing that you're allowed.
yes.
I think I dress quite formally, and I don't know why. I just think it's more fun.
Yeah.
I would really struggle to put together a casual outfit. I have like specific dresses that I wear in the house because they're full of holes and stains, and they don't leave the house. But that would be like the closest thing to casual I have, and it was a tip that someone once told me that if you've got a hangover, wear a dress, because everyone will go, "Oh my god, you look amazing! Look at that dress!" And I'm like, "Thank you."
One of my very favourite things is the morning after a show, going to like somewhere that does like a grounded cafe or something, like somewhere that does like a big trucker breakfast in a dress, maybe with some makeup on if I've got like that level, but like properly femmed up, go to this place, order the biggest truckerist breakfast I can, and confuse the hell out of the waitstaff because they always presume that it's going to be to the most masculine person on the table, and then I'm there like, no. Allow me to eat all this food in my pretty dress.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part of it. Is, I might be wearing a fancy sleeve, but I'm gonna put this burger away.
Yeah, it's about preconceptions, I think, and this idea of the social, like, how you are expected to behave is a part of how you are expected to dress.
Yeah. I've never understood social things. Girls, please. And it's interesting because I would never change the way I was dressing, one, for anyone else, and two, to make other people feel more comfortable. Because it's my body. I can do what I want with it. If I want to wear that, I will. And as long as, it's not inappropriate, just walking around with the tits out, like, what do you want? Gotta make sure you're warm enough.
Mm-hmm.
That I do worry about other people sometimes. I work in a retail job, and sometimes people will come in when it's cold outside and they won't have a coat or anything. They're like, "You're gonna be okay. you need to buy a jumper. You're gonna get cold."
I respect the commitment to the outfit, but please.
Oh yeah, the number of times that I've been like, "This outfit is so good, but now I'm gonna have to hide it under a coat."
Mm.
And I wear a lot of base layers instead, so I will wear like a slip, and then maybe like a warm petticoat that I've got a few that are made out of. I've got one that's made out of wool, because then that keeps my legs warm, and then maybe like another vest, and then a top, and then everything else. So then I can maybe not have to wear such a big heavy coat. But the problem with wearing layers underneath your clothes is once you get hot, you're like, well, I can't take anything off, so...
So, clothing is fairly strongly tied to expression for you, and for, like, explaining, presenting a certain form before people have even started talking to you. It's like a get to know me, get to see what I'm up to before you've even started talking to me. Do you think that has come from a particular, like, place, or has that been part of development as a human?
I think I just want people to know that I'm exciting, I guess. I think I dress in a way that makes people think, you know, I've obviously spent time putting that together, and, you know, my clothes come from different places, and that can be a whole conversation starter in itself. Like, oh, I love your shirt. Where did you get it? And like, oh, I think it's an ex-theatre costume I bought in a second-hand shop, which is true of this shirt and quite a few of my other pieces. And I just think you obviously don't have to outwardly show people who you are and what you're about, but I want people to look at me and go, that person is not like the rest of us, but not in a pointing out kind of way, but in like I just want to be visibly queer, honestly, just so I can identify other queer people and be like,
yeah,
right, you know.
Have you found that there's been much appeal in like drastically changing your look, or have you sort of continued in a logical progression?
I think I've continued down a logical progression, which is getting more and more unhinged. It's getting more and more historical, which makes it a bit weirder. But I love it. It's absolutely great. I have been thinking about maybe making like a huge pair of like balloon trousers that like end at the knee, and then I wear them with tights. But I don't think I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in like 6 months we'll check back and see if I've made a massive pair of balloon trousers. But no, I think if anything, it's made me feel a bit braver, because I haven't felt like I've got to sit in this box of like femininity and like looking a certain like gentle kind of way. Was the way that I always felt from being such a presence. I think being like larger and tall, I felt like I had to really minimize myself and blend in as much as possible. And I mean, not to get too deep, but it started when I was in school, because I used to get called a boy by like supply teachers, and then obviously everyone in my class went off on it because I had short hair and I was tall. And it used to really it really used to annoy me, and I'd get really upset. But in reflection, that was me going, yeah, maybe, but I don't want to have to think about it. I'm 12. So from then on, I went really feminine. I just abandoned trousers, you know, started doing makeup to school, like bows in my hair, everything I could do to make myself seem outwardly feminine to other people. I was so uncomfortable all the time. Like it wasn't me. I was dressing like quite sweet and twee, and then I think probably only about last year I was like, what am I doing? I'm not happy. I don't like this. I am an adult now. I have the means to change this. Just do it. And I really took that plunge and decided that I was going to dress for me and for nobody else. You're sort of forced by society to, they want you to look a certain way. And if you go, no, that already makes you stand out from the bunch already. And I'm really tall, I'm quite large. People stare at me all the time. And I just thought, a couple of years ago, you know, when I was younger, I used to just try and blend in jeans, t-shirt, a kind of cardigan, which is absolutely fine and would be so much more comfortable than the stuff I'm wearing at the moment, but you know. And I just decided that people were going to stare at me no matter what I wore, so I might as well wear whatever the hell I want.
You're a bit too like straight to like go to this club and stuff, or you're a bit too of this or a bit of that, and like I don't know, it's just a box that like I really liked through lockdown, really. Like that's I work a lot. Like if you know me, like I don't fucking stop. I have 2 jobs. I have my daughter. I have like just a lot of stuff going on in my life, and lockdown felt like this big pause where I could just be like, okay, let's focus on like what's important. Let's do me a little bit, and like let's explore a few different things. And I think it was just like making the kind of clothes that I'd want to wear over summer. I was a bit like, oh, is this something that I'd want to go into? Is like a they them pronoun something that would fit for me? And like it took me a lot of time to think about it, but yeah, Like, that's definitely like how I am and how I identify now.
It's interesting because it takes a sort of it takes a security and a sense of bravery to, you know, dress in a way that's not expected of you, but at the same time you're also kind of making yourself potentially a target. You're, you know, you are making yourself more visible, so there's a kind of a gamble almost that you have to make.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's a payoff. And
Yeah.
the payoff is definitely worth it. Because I fucking hate talking to people. Like, if you say hello to me, that's totally fine. Like, I will talk your ear off. But if you go, oh, go say hello to them, I'm like, you sure? You go say hello, introduce me, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, isn't it? So because then everyone talks to you.
Yeah. Definitely a way to, you know that someone's gonna be, if they're coming up to you and going, oh my gosh, I love what you're wearing, then you've instantly got something to, you know, to discuss and something that you know you're on the same page about. You've said that tailoring and suits are really like more what you've focused on in the past. How would you go about creating a gender neutral suit? What's the like thought process of taking something so traditionally masculine and making it suitable for everyone?
Like, I always say, a dress is art, a suit is engineering. Because with a suit, it's a tailored garment. The reason it's a tailored garment is because there's so much that goes into it. There's about, like, you know, 3 or 4 layers of interfacing. There's shoulder pads. If you're cutting for female form, there's like bust darts. If you're cutting for like, if I was to make a gender neutral suit, I would probably just make it a patchwork loose fitting garment. The reason I'd probably do it in patchwork is because everybody who has something like important but like poignant to say is always in motley. If you have like a jester, for example, like a jester can call a king a cunt. Now if he wasn't wearing what he was wearing, he could never get away with that. He'd get his head chopped off. It's the motley, the garb that he's wearing that lets him do that. If you're going to make something that's neutral, if you're going to make a statement, if you're going to make a point, then like, so if you look at like piracy, like pirates would always wear motley, where you get like, oh, the motley crew, but like they would always mess with the class system because they'd like steal from so many different types of people. They would always have like a scam. Like, say they were gonna, you know, go into like a governor's house or something, they would have stolen the like dress for that specific governor's house and used the class system to their advantage because they were outside the law, like they were outside of regular society, and basically just didn't really give a fuck about anything because if they got caught, they'd be killed. They would use the like kind of class system to their advantage and like dress for where they were going. If they were going to like this governor's house, they'd all dress in like the fine robes because the class system back then, like you could only wear like brocades, velvets, and like all the nice fabrics that weren't itchy. Basically, if you were in the upper classes, and then like the lower classes just sort of got your wool, hessian, cotton, tweed. They were like trailblazers in their own way.
The concept of patchwork being inherently rebellious, especially now that we're in like the society we're in at the moment that says, you know, once something is broken or worn out, you throw it away and get a new one. Having this idea of patchwork and taking what is still good about things and piecing them together into something new, as you say, linking it to rebelliousness and trend setting in the past is just a really I've never thought about it, so my mind's a little bit blown.
There's always been that like outer fringe of society of all the weirdos just going like, what the fuck are you lot doing? You all fucking normal cunts, like all the fuck bugger off, like we'll do our own thing, we'll just go off and like be happy being ourselves, and you can go on being like each other.
Even looking back through history, which is especially in the Victorian period, there was quite a lot of introduction of menswear into women's wear in sportwear. So the bloomers were named after Amelia Bloomer, who invented the trouser so that women could ride bicycles and play tennis. And the women's hunting garments from even like the 1600s. There's some examples of like Stuart riding habits for women that are based on menswear, and they've got like a waistcoat and then especially as you're getting closer towards the Edwardian period, 1895 is my absolute favourite fashion year. Women started wearing a lot of menswear. They wore a lot of like fitted waistcoats and white shirts, and yeah, it was just a really interesting period of people going, well, we can take from their fashion and make it, you know, obviously tailored and fitted, but it was a much more masculine look than, say, like the frilliness or the off-the-shoulder puff sleeves of like the 1860s.
That's really interesting, especially because like around that time was when, you know, through the Victorian period was when men's fashion started getting more and more dour and boring and more like it is today. That's because of our good old friend Beau Brummel, who ruined fashion for men. But like, to think about the fact that that kind of put the limits on what was acceptable for men to wear, and then that more women started feminizing male styles as a result, is a very interesting turnaround that I'd not really thought about before.
Well, they had really strict rules. And I was learning about female Edwardian mountain climbers the other day. It's just a casual Wednesday kind of thing. And so a lot of women who started climbing big mountains had to stop halfway up because they weren't allowed to wear trousers, and their skirts were getting in the way of climbing a mountain, as one would expect a skirt to, no matter how long or even short it was. You can't you can't scale the mountain in a skirt. And like, if they wore trousers, the men that they were like on the expedition with would be really like upset with them. Like, imagine being that sensitive to like a thigh. Possibly.
The amount of social importance that's placed on aesthetics and on this idea of like, if you are this thing, you have to look this way. And as you say, like, now the idea of non-binary identity is gaining a little bit more sort of social awareness. There's now become this idea of what non-binary looks like.
When like fashion brands go, oh, we've got a new inclusive range, and it's just all like baggy shapes and grey, it's like, non-binary people don't want that. They want like tailcoats and like rah, you know, give me exciting fashion, give me interesting, give me something that at a push you could just wear to a Halloween party and everyone would go, oh, you're an X, and I'm like, yeah, these definitely just aren't my clothes.
Do you think your own gender journey has like informed how you approach aesthetics and like the visual art form?
Yeah, I think so. It's weird because I have a very wide range of self-portraits, and like from very like film, black and white, soft light, like serious traditional portrait, and then very like colorful, like lots of color gels and like very saturated like photographs. But I think both of them represents who I am in terms of personality, and there's always this thing that you have to stick to your like signature mark, because then it's easier like to sell yourself. And I think in a way with my drag photos I do it because for me drag translates in lots of colors, and that's part of me, but there's also this other part that can be black and white, or can be not so loud, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of looking at it as well, because you've kind of, again, outlined a binary that you don't want to stick to, where it's between like traditional and serious and like bright and colourful, and it's like, or it could be both. It could be a mix of all of them.
That's something I struggled at university, but at some point I had a lecturer that told me like, maybe that's part of you and you don't have to choose, you know. So yeah, I try to convince myself that it's good, like that I don't have to choose only one way. Like I'm still shooting in film, color and black and white. I use different cameras, and um, I always like to try like different ways of taking photos, and I also love landscapes. So it's just like, I mean, and I love painting. I do like acrylics, and so it's just like you don't have to stay only with one art form or one style, and it's what you say, like the binary like follows us everywhere, not only in gender. Like I don't even know if I sure what my gender is. Really, it's just it's so complex.
So, as a performer, you have a more sort of theatrical vein to a lot of the way you choose clothes and the way you look at aesthetics. Do you think that has changed the way other trans people have interacted with you? Do you think there's like a divide between, you know, theatricality and I hate to use the term, but like possibility, and the idea of like everyday and casual, as you said, like having a conflict there?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's changed the way people interact with me. I have this vague hope in my mind that someone will see me walking down the road, as I'm eating a Gregg sausage roll, and I'll have a slightly outlandish outfit on and short hair, and my hope is that someone will see me and go, I wish I had the confidence to do that, and then go home and do it. That's what I hope. I hope that people can see that you can dress the way that you want to, and yeah, again, people are going to look, but if you can find a way of not getting over it, because it is difficult, but a way of processing it in a way that isn't as harmful to your brain, it is really powerful. And I dress for my reflection walking down the street in shop windows, and for people who wish that they could dress in a certain way but don't think that they can. And I hope that people will think, if they can do it, if that big bag of nerves can do it, I can do it.
That's a really lovely thought, yeah. Because I mean, there's also just a thing of like, it makes you happy, and it puts the little sparkle in the brain that goes like, ah, yes.
If anything, I'm a hedonist in a very vague sense, in that I just do what will make me happy.
Aesthetic hedonism.
Aesthetic hedonism, yeah, pretty much. If it makes me happy to wear a puff sleeve white blouse to work in a shop, I shall.
I remember when I studied fine arts in Spain, and I had a horrible teacher that was teaching like painting landscapes, and I always liked it to paint very colorful, like in a way, like my drag portraits are like a legacy of my painting. Like in painting, it's true that I'm more like, I stick more to the colors. Like in photography, I have more range, but when I paint, it's like 90% of the time it's just colors everywhere. And I had this teacher, and he was like, "Oh, you have to kill the color," and I was like, "You just why would you say that? You're just trying to make me paint in a way that I am not. So I ended. I left that subject because it wasn't mandatory. It was just optional. So I just left it and took another one. But it was just like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
And yeah, I had more criticism about like using saturated colors. Like, oh, that's like it's an easy way to like for people to like your art if you use a lot of colors. Like it's the easy way, and it's like maybe it's the easy way, but it's also my way. So just
Yeah. Also, so what? Like, yes, then people will like my color. Like, will like my pictures. I don't see the downside there.
exactly like if people like them, what's the problem? I don't know. I mean, you cannot see very well, but I dye my hair blue again. Just to have a little bit of that me that is super colorful, just in every day. Like, okay, I maybe not be able to do makeup every day, but I'm going to have my hair blue every day. So it's just like this part of me um, that is there.
It's interesting to look at like how because apparently the current generation has a larger identified trans population than any previous generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as if access to information makes you more likely to be able to identify yourself, clearly. But it's going to be interesting as the population continues to grow and age, how that's going to affect buying power and how shops...
I love what the young people are wearing. I'm only 23, but from working in retail and seeing like students coming in and like 16, 17-year-olds, oh man, they look so cool. they got a cow print bucket hat and flares on and like one of those tiny little handbags from the 2000s, which you can fit like a Motorola Razr and a lip gloss in. I don't know how they're fitting iPhones in those things. I think it's great. I love it. It's so nice to see people expressing themselves and expressing their gender expressing their gender expression, in a like a comfortable way that I think is so. I wish I'd seen it more when I was a child, because really the only people when I was a kid who dressed different were like goths or skaters. You know, I used to hang around with all the emo kids, but I couldn't fit into skinny jeans. And I used to wear some absolutely mad stuff down the park. Like we were just hanging out at the park, and I'd wear like a top hat and a cape. And really not much has changed. Except I think I can pull them off better now.
Yeah, I think so. Is there anything that you think people should bear in mind when they are starting to transition the way they present themselves, or is there anything that like you want to give as advice for people?
I would say like you don't have to stick to the mainstream narrative of what a trans person has to look like, and it's okay to change your mind and to experiment with clothes. It's like unless people transition like a very young age, we don't get that phase of like being a teenager and have like that moment of experimenting. So you can have it at any age. Like for me, it's just like I would say it's never too late to experiment with colors, or if gray and black is what brings you euphoria to your gender expression, go for it. Even if some people think it's boring, it's just and if your thing is colors or both, just go for it too. And I think normally you know inside what makes you feel good, but sometimes you just have to experiment and just let's go shopping. And if you can go with a friend who understands you, that's the best.
Oh yeah. You gotta have a buddy when you go shopping, otherwise it's no fun.
It's because I've been reading Billy Connolly, so there's a great quote that's not Billy Connolly. Bob Dylan misquoted Billy Connolly, but it was that to understand someone, you've got to walk a mile in their shoes. But if you've walked a mile in their shoes, you've already got their fucking shoes, so just run as fast as you can.
Yeah, my favourite Billy Connolly is probably never trust a person. I mean, he says man, but I think person, who, when left alone in a room with a tea cozy, does not instantly put it on their head. I think that's the truest wisdom.
That's really wise words.
Yeah.
Just do what makes you happy, as long as it's safe. Obviously, don't put yourself in a dangerous situation. Express yourself in a way that you feel comfortable with, and there's always a way to step up an outfit or spice it up a bit with an accessory. I love an accessory. But there are ways of showing your feelings and your identity in the way that you want the world to perceive you. You have control of that as far as what you want to wear. And I just think just remember that no one else's opinion matters. It's just what you want to do. So go out, get a waistcoat, come on, do it.
Read up on your favourite period of history, and
Right. I mean, if people want book recommendations, they're welcome to message you on Instagram. It's at Mariana Drag. And I'm happy to impart some fashion history books that I would recommend.
amazing.